yeah? This is like walking from Canada to Mexico in just one day. Right now, we're dropping below San Jacinto, arguably the most dramatic escarpment in the entire United States. As we descend the escarpment, we actually move through entire life zones. From alpine forests to pine woodlands, chaparral and scrub, all the way to the desert floor of the Colorado desert. Hello, Captain reporting. Today we're talking about days 16, 17 and 18. And this is coming up to Fuller's Ridge from Taquit's Meadows, crossing over the ridge and down the north face of that San Jacinto escarpment all the way into Cabazon, and then Whitewater the next day. Today in Taquit's Meadows, day 16, we wake up in Taquit's Meadows and there's frost everywhere. It's cold, it's really cold, but it's gorgeous as you look around. So we dust off the tents, wait for the sun to kind of melt some of that. And then we get walking. Now, we took an alternative route to Saddle Junction, and as we approach Saddle Junction, we really start to enter big tree country. I think we've got like sugar pines, Jeffrey pines. I don't think we've got lodgepole pines yet, but we've got white firs, and a few others. Maybe we get in the junipers, definitely some incense cedars. But these scenes just gorgeous. You've got the needles of the trees just all on the floor, padding the foot. And at Saddle Junction, there's a few campers and we run into a volunteer ranger. It was my first experience. Skidoo, who I'm walking with, has been a ranger in a previous life. And so we had a nice conversation, and I'll put up a little thing here so you can see. But then after that, the theme was just up. So from Saddle Junction to the point at which you can either summit Mount San Jacinto or you can take the route round on the PCT, that was just up. And we decided against the summit, and so we went around. And now you're just starting to get phenomenal views, kind of down into the Idlewild side of things, until of course we hit the ridge, at which point we get our first views of the Colorado desert, all the way 10,500 feet at the top of San Jacinto. You can see down the escarpment, arguably one of the most dramatic escarpments. I'll come back to that. And then as we navigate down Fuller's Ridge, we're kind of traversing the ridge, so we're seeing the south side and the north side. Some of the paths are absolutely beautiful. We also had this idea to film something to do with this very dramatic escarpment, basically a point A to point B, which is really steep, covering loads of life zones and everything from snow to desert. And so we filmed one of those, and while we were filming that, one of our teammates, Bandit, kind of came down. Turns out she'd gone up to San Jacinto on her own and spent a little longer, and so she caught us up, and we found our way to Fuller's campsite, which I just didn't want to be there. It was a bit sheltered. I wanted to see. There was a stunning sunset beginning to happen. I knew that if we could get to the west face inside, which we hadn't yet seen, right at the end of Fuller's Ridge, we were going to have a magical campsite. And it was getting a bit late and we were getting a bit desperate, and then we just found the most spectacular spot, maybe one of my favorite spots I have ever camped in. And we start setting up dinner, and the sun is going and the colors are going wild, and you've got everything on the horizon from that dark red all the way to black. I mean, maybe it's that white red, you know, it's like where the sun's just touched. It's that red that goes into blue to purple to black of the night sky. And I think there'd been a little bit of a fire, so the smoke helps to accentuate those colors, that absolute gorgeous palette. And yeah, it was just spectacular. And then what you're seeing is Riverside County, basically one of the more populous county in the country, and that just lit up, and you have this amazing painting of a sunset. So yeah, that was day 16, absolutely stunning. Day 17, we wake up and we wanted to be up early so that we could get the early morning hours in, because it was gonna be hot. The heat wave was starting to roll in. And so we're up at 5, the sunrise is almost as good as the sunset before, and we start making our way down, the dappled sunlight through the trees. It's a little bit chilly. And then, you know, today was all about being on that north face of the San Jacinto escarpment down to Cabazon Pass, we were going from, you know, something like -1 temperatures all the way to 36-degree temperatures. Like, that's happening in about 12 hours. And this descent is just view after view of that peak all the way to the desert. And it's hard to describe, you know, sometimes I give it my best, especially if we can help illustrate it with some videos. But the depth of the landscape that because you're seeing one shot, and that one shot is 10,500 foot gone there. And so the second you start paying attention to some of the details of the mountains, you realize there's like a mountain on a mountain. And that, I mean, I have a look here. I don't think I'm doing it justice, but quickly the shade started disappearing. We knew this was gonna happen. And so at about 2 p.m. we sat kind of huddled in some shade under a bit of a chemise bush and just had some lunch for a few hours and waited for that heat to subside, by which time we made our way and had entered into the water faucet that was just at the base of the mountain where we could camp. About coming to the bottom of San Jacinto and into Cabazon Pass is seeing these, I think they're very famous, right? The trains in America where they're almost a mile long. And what you can see here is that massive, dramatic landscape from that elevation that we are down to the desert. And then you just see that line slowly moving. And hopefully this sinks, but you go to the front of the carriage and you go back and you zoom out and you understand that that's like a mile long. Really mind blowing. And I mean, this campsite was gorgeous. By this time, it's like the sun's gone down. It's still like 26 degrees. I'm like shirtless, lying on our sleeping bags. We've got this amazing setup. Obviously, we're cowboy camping, so we've got almost a 360 view of the sky. The sun starts going down. Again, that full palette of sunset. And then the bats come out and they're dancing in this open space. And sure enough, the stars begin to come out. And it was just, I mean, it was really magical. I don't know if it tops the night before that I got very excited about as well, but this was certainly very close. So then we move on to day 18.
Yo, day 18, I think. God, maybe it's 17, losing count. We woke up at the bottom of San Jacinto. It was phenomenal. Like, we had the whole night to ourselves. It was warm, unbelievable. The wind's blowing just at the moment. So we crossed the I-10, did a day at Cabazon, just eating. It's like 94 today, which is 34 degrees Celsius. And yeah, so we just didn't want to spend the majority of the day in the heat. So we started walking at 5 p.m. and we're gonna walk until 10 p.m, maybe 11. But yeah, different, hot, very hot. And yeah, San Jacinto at the bottom of it yesterday was just marvelous and spectacular. I'll get into more details.
Now, day 18 is where we've just camped near Cabazon Pass, near the I-10, to Whitewater River Visitor Center. And again, today the heat is strong. We're very much aware of this. So what we decide to do is we're gonna walk the 4 miles it is to the I-10, get an Uber into Cabazon, which is pretty close. They've got an in and out at Jersey Mike's. We can do a little resupply. So we do that, and we have to cut through the Cabazon flat before you get to the I-10. And there's something interesting about it because it's almost a bit apocalyptic. It's flat, it's hot, it's windy. This Cabazon Pass is the biggest descent and ascent from San Jacinto up to San Gorgonio on the whole PCT, funnily enough. Of course, you go higher when you go into the Sierra, but nothing's dropping as much as this big one. So yeah, we're crossing the flat and it's windy. It's this wind tunnel, so you've got all the windmills everywhere. When we get to Cabazon, we do in and out for breakfast. We meet some people, then we go to Hadley's, which is like just a bit of a bougie shop, you know. They do date shakes. They're very famous for their date shakes, and they sell lots of dates because it's kind of a date country. They got date palms all over the Coachella Valley. And yeah, next thing, we are back on track. We get an Uber back to the I-10 where we came under the underpass, and we start walking at about 5 p.m. in order to basically get some miles in with a nighttime hike. And all cards on the table, this was my first night hike, and as an adult, and I was a little vulnerable. I have to say, it felt like a sense had been taken away. and I was kind of walking, you know, obviously without any light. I've got a head torch, but it was quite precipitous on some of the path that we were doing, and the wind had picked up in the evening. Anyway, we safely got to camp at around 11 p.m. and then just plotted down. Turns out it was an absolutely gorgeous camp, so can't complain on that front.